All right, we are live. Okay, so let's wait for everybody to join. Hi everyone, welcome to this Instagram live in the series of 10 rules of being claimed from Anna Rova. For those of you who don't know me, I am femininity and feminine relationship coach for women, and I help single successful women attract committed masculine men. This is episode 2 of the 10 rules of being claimed, and I'm also recording this as a podcast episode, so let me just hit the play button. All right, so welcome everyone to the second episode of the 10 Rules of Being Claimed series. I'm super excited to be with you today, and I'm recording this as a podcast episode, but also as an Instagram live. So if you're listening to this audio, know that you can also find this in video version on IGTV, and this is going to be saved there as well. So welcome everyone. Quick disclaimer that my baby is sleeping in the other room, and I actually didn't think about this, that Tuesdays I'm with my baby at home, and I scheduled this every day, and then I realized, oh my god, she's actually sleeping. But it's good, we have a good half an hour before she wakes up, so it's going to be a good time for us. But if she does wake up and you hear baby screams, I apologize. I might have to just jump back in again tomorrow. So super excited about this. Hope you joined, you managed to listen to me yesterday or to the previous episode where we talked about rule number 1 for all the women to know that, you create your dating funnel and men compete. On the previous episode, I explained to you how the dating funnel works, how there's 3 stages to the dating funnel, and how it works as a funnel, which is a reversed pyramid, and how you are the one creating your funnel and men compete for you. So today we focus on rule number 2, which is you get the best piece. So what this really means, I actually wrote a really good article on this subject called Set Yourself Free, the guide to being a good enough woman. So if you want to just Google these words, and you'll find my article on Medium, highly recommend that you read that, because it's a really, really good article. It's a 12-minute read, so it's quite an extensive read, but basically this rule is all about that. And so this is probably going to be a podcast episode as well, but I just wanted to mention that. So let's talk about, why rule number 2 is you get the best piece and what this means. So, and the premise of that article was really about, today we live in a world where, if you focus on yourself, somehow it is selfish. And somehow it is kind of unhealthy. We're all brought up, especially as women, to be good girls, which means that we focus on the other first and not on ourselves. And in the article, I also talk about this idea of being a good enough woman, which basically means that you're good enough just as you are on your own, without doing anything, without proving anything, and so on and so forth. And I find that in a lot of the women that I work with, the issue of self-worth and self-esteem, and therefore we try to prove so hard that we're worthy to men, to the world, and so on and so forth, are rooted in this belief that we're somehow not enough. And these are obviously beliefs that are deeply rooted within us, that have been there either. There's many factors that influence those beliefs. Deeply rooted beliefs in us that have been with us since we were little girls and going through our adult life. There's many factors that influence beliefs, and beliefs is something that I work with women extensively, not only to ask them to understand them in their head, but also in their bodies. So this idea that, we need to give first to others, we need to make sure that everybody else is okay before we are okay, is not serving us. And I know it's kind of a mindset shift, but what this does is that we give. Like, how many of you women right now think about how you are in relationships and with other people? How many times have you felt disappointed? let down and like people are not adhering to your expectations. Well, that's because you've set up the expectation that you're going to give, and then you're going to receive and expect in return. And that doesn't work. It doesn't work in relationships with other people, but especially this doesn't work with men. Because as women, and it is in our nature to be nurturing and to be giving, but there's a difference between when you give from a place of, I want you to love me, than from a place of, I'm a good enough woman and I give because I can and because it gives me pleasure, but I actually don't expect anything in return. Actually, expectations are some of the biggest obstacles that have prevented me from meeting my committed masculine men and from actually establishing pretty healthy boundaries and relationships with other people. And I highly recommend that you start dropping your expectations and work on your healthy boundaries. And so I want to talk about this idea that you get the best piece. And a lot of women feel guilty about getting the best piece of anything, really. Get the best piece for yourself, and then give to others from a full cup. And this principle also applies to your relationships with men, obviously, because when you give to yourself first without giving yourself away, it creates a very healthy dynamic where your man, first of all, respects and appreciates you for who you are. And then your children and then the community respect and appreciate you for who you are. But that all starts with you. If you are a woman who's going about your day and about your life expecting so much giving to everyone and expecting everyone to give her in return, it just doesn't work. It's a recipe for unhappiness and unfulfillment. Because think about it, there are hundreds of people in your life, well, not hundreds, but you know what I mean, many people in your life, in your immediate circle of friends and family, then there is men, then there is the community and so on and so forth. It is impossible to adhere to people's expectations of how they want you to behave and how they want you to be. And the same thing applies to you, that it's impossible for you to keep people to a certain standard of how you should, how they should behave towards you. And so the solution to that is that we all turn into ourselves, focus on ourselves, on our own boundaries, and create healthy dynamics with other people, with ourselves, and then with other people. And especially this relates to men. So how this principle works is that, I'll give you a very practical example. I also felt guilty a lot of the times about putting myself first, because, and a very practical example is, let's say we sit up at the table. So a question to you right now, there's, me, let's say my husband and my child. So who gets the best piece? Who gets what first, right? I'm curious to know, if you're watching this on Instagram or any other way, I'd be curious to know what is the answer to that. The usual answer to that is, well, of course, the child gets the best. So the child gets the first piece and the best piece, right? And then the men, you would serve your men, and then you would serve yourself. And so this is you putting yourself last. And this is just an example. I mean, obviously, yeah, Amelia, who's commenting, is working with me. So that's why she said, me, ? Amelia knows this principle, therefore she's putting herself first. I love it. So, how it should normally work. And this is just an example on how we sit at the table and how, the best piece gets given to the child, then the man, then you. How it actually technically should work is that you get the best piece first. Then your man gets the next piece, and then your child gets the rest. Not the rest, I mean the next best piece, let's say, and this is how it gets distributed. So, somebody's saying, what did I miss? You didn't miss much. You missed quite a few things, but that's okay. You're gonna have access to it. Welcome. So what we need to do is put ourselves first in that way, and that really applies to that practical example. When you sit down with a man at a table, if you're not married or in a relationship or don't have children, you get the best piece. And this principle applies to every single situation in your life. Because what this will do is it will do a few different things. Number one, it will teach you to treat yourself better and think about yourselves first. And that is quite a mindset shift in our current society, because we're not told to put ourselves first because you're selfish. You think about you think about yourself too much, which is complete bullshit, because it doesn't work like that. You need to think of yourself first. first cover, you've heard this thing before many times, put on your mask, whatever, oxygen mask on you, and then put it on others. This is basically what you're doing. So what this does when you do put yourself first, it teaches you to treat yourself with a lot of respect, with a lot of space, with a lot of, just with dignity and respect, that you matter. You put yourself first. You're enough just by being you. And that's what I work with women in the program. So many women struggle with this. That also teaches men to treat you differently. Men don't treat you, set up the standard on how men treat you by treating yourself in that way. So when a woman is really focused on herself and her value, right? Having a busy life, working on her femininity, her body, being in love with herself, and this hashtag like self-love is, I don't even know what that means anymore, because everybody's just hashtagging it. Like, what the hell does that mean? Well, this is exactly what it means. And I'll give you some practical examples. So what this does is, it teaches men around you how to treat you, because they see how you treat yourself. And it also teaches your children on how to treat you and how your man treats you, so how dad treats mom. So you see how this dynamic works, and then your community and so on and so forth. So from the immediate circle of your family, it now gets expanded into all the other circles. But you set the pace. You set the dynamic. If you put yourself first, people will treat you with dignity and respect and will put you first. And so this is just a principle. I'll give you another example. For me personally, my morning starts with a morning routine. I spend on myself an hour as my morning routine. And then after that, I spend another hour on my writing or doing some immediate morning things in my work, which is discovery calls with women and so on and so forth. But during that full hour, that's just my habit now. I can't imagine my life differently. So I have no idea how women just get up and go and attend to their children, attend to their husbands, and attend to everybody else in the world, because that's what women do. We attend to everybody else first, and then we put ourselves last. And no wonder we're depleted, burned out, resentful, bitter with men and with people around us and with ourselves. Well, the solution to that is really establishing practices and systems in your life that you can put yourself first, and starting to work on that belief about you being a good enough woman without taking care of everybody else, without proving anything else to anyone, and without marching forward with this accolades of achievements that you made and gathered through your life. Like when we were little girls, we're hearing good girl, good grades. So it was all about, for me personally, when I grew up, I didn't even know who I was without my grades or without the way I was a good girl. If I was a bad girl, I was honestly, in my life as a girl, I was never good enough. I always felt like I was freaking broken, like something's wrong with me all the time. So imagine how, and obviously I lost my mother when I was 8, and imagine, of course, as a teenager, my nervous system was completely shut down. I was literally like an animal that needed to be caged. I couldn't do it, that's why I started smoking, drinking alcohol, and so on and so forth. People were saying either I'm going to end up in jail or a drug addict or whatever. It was just crazy. Luckily, I had enough, force within me, and also circumstances in my life happened that I was smart enough to actually win a scholarship, go to the US. And so anyway, so you see how that works. And I'm sure that if you're listening to this, perhaps you resonate with some of the things, because that's what women tell me time and time and again on discovery calls and in my coaching program, that I had to always prove myself and be someone. Just by being me, that was never enough. So this is where this stems from. So I hope you understand this principle. And my question to you, and if you have any questions, let me know right now. But my question to you is, what can you do today to start putting yourself first and start setting up boundaries and start saying no to things that, there's some situations where it's like, oh man, like I really don't want to do this, but I kind of have to, and like, and then you go for like whatever. Look, this situation happened in my life as well. And I would tell you right now that the only exception to this is probably family members, because with family members, it's like, it's very tricky and complicated. So again, when I coach women through my program, it's like, well, with family, you didn't choose your family. And there are dynamics, especially if you deal with like older family members, like parents and grandparents. Really, there's not much you can do there. You can't change anyone, but especially when you're dealing with family, sometimes you got to choose your own battles. But I can tell you right now that with my sister, for example, I set my boundaries pretty sharp as well. So the other day we had some conversation about something, and she was asking me for a favor, and I really didn't, like, I could do this favor, but by doing, like, it didn't feel good in my body. And that's why when I work with women, I work a lot with embodied boundaries. So it's one thing to kind of know in your head what boundaries are, but it's another thing to feel in your body. And I'm actually going to talk about embodiment as a rule 11 that I put together as a bonus to really explain to you why embodiment is so important and why this is a modality that I use in my coaching a lot. And I feel like that is the main difference between what I do and perhaps other coaching, relationship and dating coaching programs. So she asked me something that I could do, but it would put a lot of strain on me, and it was uncomfortable in my body. And I was kind of, well, yeah, maybe I do it. But then I'm like, I felt into my body and say, you know what? No, like, it doesn't work for me. This is not convenient for me. This is a nuisance for me. And I really want to help you, but let's find a way how it could work for both of us, that it should be a win-win. And so I told her that. I wrote her a message and I told her that. And you know what? Like 5 minutes later, she sent me a screenshot, said, I figured it out. And I'm like, oh, really? So a lot of the times, actually, the consequences and the repercussions of setting boundaries within us and within our lives are made up. Like, we literally make them up because we feel like, if we set boundaries and put ourselves first, then, somehow our relationships are going to be broken. People are not going to like us. Like all of these very uncomfortable things. And these are driven by, these fears are obviously driven by our primitive brains, because we want to be liked, we want to be part of the group. And that's why we're not putting ourselves first, because it's like, well, I want to just blend in and be part of the group so that I'm not expelled from the tribe, so to say, which was a very lonely journey thousands of years ago. But today we don't deal with that. And so it also takes courage. Like, I understand it takes courage, but this is the only way out of the unhealthy attachment, no boundaries, codependent relationship with other people and men, and into a place where you put yourself first and you actually stand strong on your ground of why you need to do that, so that it again puts you first, puts you in a healthy dynamic, especially with a man. Like, I hear a lot of examples from the women I work with and on discovery calls where women overstep their own boundaries and let men overstep theirs. And I actually share a powerful formula on how to communicate boundaries. I actually wrote a pretty good article, and I think it's a podcast episode called 4 Steps to Setting Boundaries with Men. So check that out. Actually, if you Google boundaries with men, I'm on the first page. So that's great news. We talk about all of that, and why this happens is because women don't know how to set their boundaries. They're overstepping their boundaries, and also they don't know how to set consequences and follow through those boundaries. And that all stems again from having that ability to put yourself first and having the tools and the practices to powerfully go forward with that. So, this is pretty much it for this, for this rule. And I know it's pretty simple, but in reality, it's not. And as women, we find ourselves constantly being pulled into different directions of, oh my God, my children are wanting me, my husband is wanting me, everybody else wants me, right? So I'm going to leave you with a question of, and if you have any questions, let me know now, or you can message me or comment here and I'll answer them on the next episode. But what can you do today to start putting yourself first and, actually getting out of that dynamic that, oh my God, I need to give. So some of the things are like what I do. Again, I have a morning routine. So see, very important actually, especially if you're a mother. You know, if you're single, I envy you and I'm very jealous because you have the time now to put together a morning routine. I was doing that when I was single, but now really solidified. And now that I'm married and now that I have a child, and now that I run my own business, it's extremely important for me to have that hour for me in the morning to put myself first, because then I feel like, you know, I'm good. Like I show up to the day, and the practices that I'm doing and everything really help me regulate my emotional guidance system so that I'm not like frantically running around thinking about everybody else and not even having the time for me. Because honestly, during my day, I don't have much time for me. I work, I take care of my daughter, you know, like husband, I think about meals, laundry, like all of that stuff. So how can you implement that into your morning routine or maybe evening routine, and practice when you are together on a table, let's say, practice getting the best piece. Like literally you sit down with a man or with somebody else, even if you cooked it, get yourself the first spoon or get yourself the best piece of whatever is there. And of course, the deeper work there is to work on your beliefs. Where is this coming from? You know, reframing those beliefs and really feeling good enough without proving anything to anyone, without doing anything, because you're good enough. And again, that article, Set Yourself Free, the guide to being a good enough woman, is a really good resource for you to read through that. And, you know, if you want to talk more and explore more, then let me know. All right, so I hope this was helpful. Let me know what was your biggest takeaway, and when you practice putting yourself first, make sure you tag me and write some sort of a hashtag self-love. You know, don't do self-love because I don't even know what that is anymore. So, all right, thank you. So I've just stopped my podcast recording and now it's just you and me, ladies. So I'll stay for a few more minutes to see if anybody has any questions regarding that. So let me know, how are you putting yourself first or not putting yourself first? And if you have any questions in terms of, don't worry, I think Beth, all good. Because this is going to be saved in my stories and then in IGTV, and I just recorded it as a podcast episode. So, yes, I will. This is going to be a podcast episode going out in July, but this is going to be in IGTV as well. So don't worry, all good. Okay. I think this is it. Let me tell you, if you have questions, just post them. I'll tell you about what's next. Tomorrow, when I'm working on babies in daycare, we're going to talk about one of my favorite rules, which is the rule of thirds. So tomorrow, same time, which is 8 p.m. PST. Thanks, Beth. Thank you. I hope it's Beth. We're going to talk about the rule of thirds, which basically means that you date 3 men at a time. And this is not my concept, but I really feel like it's so important to talk about this. We're going to talk about logistics, think about the questions of how, you know, what arises for you in that. But that I found that that's a really good rule to have for women who, like most of us, get just attached after 3 dates and maybe an intimacy occasion. We feel like we're in a relationship, something that I talked about yesterday in rule number 1. All right, ladies, much love to you. Thank you so much. Have a great night. I think if you are in the US, it's day for me. But I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, bye. Mwah.